Welcome to the Sermon Notes Podcast. I'm Jay Strother, and today we're kicking off a special series for the month of August as we turn our attention to what God is doing through global missions. Each week this month, we'll introduce you to one of our global workers, men and women sent out from our church to take the gospel to the nations. You'll hear their stories, their struggles, and the joy they found following Jesus wherever he calls. On today's episode, I'm joined by my friends Winston and Emmy Coltart, who serve in Zimbabwe, originally through campus ministry. Now they're planting churches, and they have a gospel-centered coffee shop near a major university. We'll talk about how Romans 1:16 and 17 has shaped their boldness as they share Christ in the middle of deep need and incredible opportunity. So mark your calendars. Sunday, August 17th, a global worker will be preaching at each of our campuses. It's a great opportunity to see how the mission of God is moving forward through ordinary people saying yes to his call. Well, let's jump into today's conversation. Winston and Emmy, it's so glad to have you stateside.
Yeah, it's good to be home.
Yeah.
So good to be here.
And this is your second home, right?
Yeah.
Right,
In
of
a lot
course.
of ways.
It's a mixed term.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You're from
Yeah.
Tennessee originally.
Yeah.
Tennessee meets Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
So tell us, give us the story. How did you guys meet?
I went over to Zimbabwe in 2012, and we met there when I was on a short-term mission trip. And yeah, we just met at a college hangout and stayed in contact long distance for about 3 years. So
Yeah, that's so fun. So go on a short-term mission journey, meet your future spouse.
Come
It
on,
might
guys.
happen, right?
Need
game
help?
plan.
You never know what God is up to.
Yeah.
In all those ways. But no, I do love the story of how God brought the two of you together. And as a matter of fact, I think I was one of the very first persons that you guys ever had a conversation with because Winston, you applied to our residency program back in its early days. I think it was year 2. You were in the second cohort. And so I remember interviewing you from like a dorm room on the East Coast somewhere on Zoom when Zoom is pre-pandemic.
new.
Yeah, so it was this new thing. But I remember, first of all, I love your accent, right?
That's kind to say.
Yeah, you get like automatic listener points
Yeah.
just for that, because you were born and raised in Zimbabwe. Tell us a little bit about what that was like
Right.
growing up for you.
Yeah. So, I was born in Zimbabwe's second largest city, Bulawayo, and to Zimbabwean parents. I just developed a love for the place. My dad is kind of a lawyer and involved in
Government,
politics.
if I remember right, yeah.
Right, yeah. He's actually currently the mayor of Bulawayo. Just really, it's kind of a place that can leave people feeling a bit bruised at times, but also that really has so much to love about it. I grew up there. Met Em in 2012, and we were both in university, and I was then looking to do some theological studies, so I went off to a seminary in Philadelphia, and we got married, and then as you say, met you, found out about the residency program, and scheduled a call with this guy called Jay Strother and have a chat with you, and really, the rest is history.
And here we
from
are,
there.
gosh, almost 10 years later.
Yeah.
And so God has done so many different things. So during our time with your residency program, you were in the pastoral track, served at our Woodbine campus.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about how God kind of used that time for the two of you, just some of the things you learned and experienced.
Oh man, that was one of the most precious seasons of our lives.
Sorry to our children.
All in due time. We'll kind of get to the story of the kids, but I get it.
For sure.
My wife and I we have 5, and we try to remember sometimes what was life like before. What did we do with all of our time? But I get it. It was a special time, and I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah,
It was amazing. Getting to serve in a context where we also kind of being poured into and looked after. And for me, it was where I kind of cut my teeth on preaching. Doug Jones, who was the pastor at Woodbine at the time, was really kind and just making as much as much of the pulpit available to me. And so I did a lot of preaching in that time. And then, just being part of a cohort as well in the residency was
Yeah.
incredible. Some of our dearest friends are from that. People, they've come out to visit us in Zim, and they've connected us with their kind of churches here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think for Em as well, a lot of the spouses really forged deep bonds through that program as well.
I think our seminary years were quite hard, like
Yeah.
in a weird way, because we didn't have a lot of community, weirdly
Sure.
enough. It was a small seminary. But coming back to Nashville and like just meeting this cohort of people, we just like formed such good friendships because there was so many people that were like-minded, that were wanting to learn and grow and serving the church. And then when we were placed at Woodbine, we just felt like we just fit in like a glove. Like it was
And I
so
remember
good.
during that season, that chapter of Woodbine in particular, the Lord was drawing a lot of people from the nations to that campus. And so that was such a neat time for you guys to get to be there. And of course, we all love Doug and how the Lord used that time. And, we have this challenge question we give our people: when and where are you experiencing life-giving biblical community? So I love that
was
not
rich.
only did you
Yeah.
guys get to pour into our people, but you also were poured into, and that's formed these lasting relationships because you need those in ministry. You need those in all walks of life, but especially in what we do. Those are rare gifts indeed.
So good.
Yeah. So tell us about the kids, Emmy. So
yeah.
the kids come
And
along,
them.
right?
Yes. Yeah. So we have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old now. Nora is 5 and Ezra is 3. Nora was born in a pandemic, like any good 2020 baby.
It's wild.
So we moved to Zimbabwe March 2020. The country shut down, and then Nora was born in July.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
it
You
was
guys
quite
moved
crazy.
right before the pandemic.
Yeah, like 2 weeks before the pandemic. Like it was the sort of thing, we were on the airplane and the air hostess was like, maybe you should wear a mask. Maybe you shouldn't. Like you are pregnant.
I had
so
been in
maybe
South
just in
Africa just a
case.
few weeks before that, and I remember people started wearing masks, and I was like, "What is this mask? What is
just didn't know.
what is going on?"
Yeah.
Wild to think
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about when you guys got back to Zimbabwe, you began to have various outreach opportunities. You established a coffee shop during that time near a university, and you began to minister to those students. Talk to us a little bit about that chapter of your ministry and some of the things what your strategy was and what you saw God do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to share about the coffee shop maybe?
Sure, yeah.
So the coffee shop was sort of a dream for us
Yeah.
to combine both business and ministry, to draw people into a place that they wouldn't maybe come to a church building, but they would come to a coffee shop.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as Winston was saying, Zimbabwe is a place that can leave people feeling quite bruised and just like if young people, their goal is to leave the country, partly because they have to make money to support the family back home.
Yeah.
So the youth and the young people that are there are really like downcast because there's not much going on for them. There's not a lot to do. So the dream that we've had for a long time was just to have a place where we could create community, to have different events going on that are fun for young people, but that might also draw people in to like meet people who are Christians that could invite them into our one day kind of church planting kind of endeavors. So,
Yeah. Well, I love that. A couple of weeks ago we were in Acts and we were talking about the fact that Paul had to have this tent making job, that helped support the ministry. He was called to reach people with the gospel, but he was willing to kind of have this platform along with Aquila and Priscilla of making tents, working in leather, doing whatever it takes. But what a beautiful vision, and really interesting in the context of that country, because that when young adults are at such a formative time in their life, in which it's really what's poured into them during those years is going to shape a lot of ways the trajectory. And so I'd love to hear any stories or any breakthroughs that you guys felt, any strategies that were really effective.
It's always fun when you kind of do ministry in a new place, because evangelism is kind of one of my passions. I love doing it. And when I was here in Nashville, obviously we were at Woodbine, but once a week a friend and I would go on to the campus at Vandy. And we kind of found our bearings there, and how do you engage with students there. But when we wound up on a campus in Zimbabwe, it was same kind of demographic in a sense, very smart, very driven, young people, but a completely different approach was needed. If we tried to take the sort of method of engagement on Vandy to Zim, it would have just fallen flat, because what people are wrestling with here, they're not wrestling with there.
It's so important, right? The gospel doesn't change, but the context of ministry does. And so meeting people where they're at, answering the questions they have, listening to them, hearing their needs, their fears, their hopes. So good.
Yeah. And that is that's the fun thing about doing evangelism, is it's different almost every time, because you're dealing with different people, and you're dealing with different cultures, and so it's kind of like a game. You're just kind of feeling the conversation out, and you're thinking, I know the gospel connects with this person somewhere.
That's good.
But where is it? And where are they going to feel it the most?
Good.
And so on this campus that we were working on in Zim, we typically go out 2 by 2, and just meet students in their lunch breaks, strike up a chat, and we'd kind of see evangelism as an invitation to discipleship.
Right.
And those who are hungry would kind of take hold. And in an African context, or at least in Zimbabwe, I found that students would tend to want to tell you what they think that you want to hear. And so initially I was thinking I was having so much success, because if you ask students, do you want to accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior? They would say yes. But then they would just fall off the face of the earth after that. And so it's like, this doesn't seem to be actually cutting where the need is, and so then we kind of changed the approach, and would you like to, if it felt like the conversation was going well and they were responding well, would you like to meet up with me over the next few weeks, and we read the book of Romans, say. And that's where you really get to see
who wants it.
Exactly.
That's so fascinating. So just because of you're stepping onto campus, they would kind of give you the answer you wanted to hear, and you discovered it. And we talk about this often, right? The goal of the gospel is not merely to make converts. Of course, it begins with conversion, but it's to make disciples.
Right, yeah.
So really trying to press them towards more of a disciple-making relationship, where you can walk them through Scripture, and that's so beautiful. And speaking of Romans, that's the text we were in yesterday, and we'll be in this Sunday as well. Romans 10. This Sunday we were in Romans 1. Just Paul's absolute confidence in the gospel, right? I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, because it is the power of God for salvation to anyone who believes. First to the Jew, and then to the Greek. And so talk to us a little bit about how that confidence in the gospel, how that helps shape what you guys do in Zimbabwe, and perhaps maybe now making the turn now intentionally into church planning. How has that helped shape you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hunter was preaching yesterday, and I was so encouraged, because I think that like maybe people see us as the missionaries coming home. We're like the super Christian or whatever. Like, we've got it. Like, they're doing the things, and it's like, yes, in some ways, but we're weak humans, and we need so much help. And it was just such a refreshment to my heart to be re-challenged on that, to know that it is like the power of God. It's not me.
Right.
And like to not get caught up in the mundane things or like the frustrations of Zimbabwe, but to realize that like it is the power of God with me. Like, and he shared like testimonies from like Paul and like Jim Elliott, Elizabeth Elliott, those kind of things. And I was so like re-inspired to like go back, so refreshed by that
Praise
word.
God.
It was so good.
Good.
Yeah, I think that verse for me has, it's kind of shaped me over the years, because when we first met, I think I was actually in a stage where I perhaps was actually a bit ashamed of the gospel. I was studying philosophy at the University of Cape Town. It's kind of this big secular environment where it felt like the kind of purpose of the course was to kind of show how ridiculous it is to believe in God.
Sure.
And so I was just feeling beaten and battered down. And I clung on to Jesus because I knew that I had no other hope, but I kind of did it, like
Shyly. maybe.
Shyly,
Yeah.
and I thought I was wanting to represent him well, and I was not wanting to confuse him with these kind of cultural expressions that aren't actually the gospel. But I think I realized it when we were on our honeymoon in
So we went from long distance to married very quickly, and so a lot of this stuff comes out quickly when you get married.
Yeah.
Not Charlotte, Charleston, South Carolina.
yeah.
And we're at a coffee shop and very hip and upmarket place, and someone asked him like, how did you meet? And she said, like, I was on a mission trip in Zimbabwe. And I was like, you shouldn't say that. Like, because
embarrassed,
they have this picture of, this, girl in her chocos with her like oversized t-shirt.
Which probably wasn't wrong at that stage. I mean,
it's like we got to contextualize the gospel better, but I think actually I was ashamed. I wanted to kind of distinguish myself and be like, I'm not like that kind of a Christian.
like my wife.
and actually, I think in the last few years, and I think the Brentwood residency, our whole time here, and the kind of missions mindedness that we were kind of that we just imbibed here, I think it brought this kind of liberty to me. Whereas
praise God.
I am a Christian, and I have my flaws, and there are things that are not compelling about me. But the gospel that I proclaim is a compelling gospel. And so I'm going to proclaim it, and I don't really care what people think about me.
Yeah, that confidence. I used a John Stott quote yesterday in my sermon where he says, the reason why Paul would say, I'm not ashamed of the gospel is because we're tempted to be ashamed of the gospel.
Right.
From a Jewish background, right? He called it, right? It's a stumbling block.
It is.
That for them, man, a man hung on a tree, that's to be cursed.
Yeah.
In their interpretation of the Old Testament. To the Greeks, right? It's just foolishness. Like, this doesn't make sense. This isn't the way, it's why I went back to verse 1 and said, where he introduces himself, in the letter, he says, this is the gospel of God. In other words, this isn't a story mankind would invent. This isn't the way we would write the script of how to save the world, but this is what God has given us,
right.
This gift in Christ Jesus. And so I love that. There's just the process of growing more confident in the gospel and the journey that the Lord has had you on. So in that confidence, you guys have really put down stakes in Zimbabwe and said, hey, we feel led to take this from a coffee shop, university ministry, even to a church plant. Tell us how that's going.
Yeah, it has been a bit of a bumpy road.
Sure.
Much like our roads in Zimbabwe. You can swim in our potholes.
You can argue that here in Tennessee too. Infrastructure seems to be a challenge everywhere.
Yeah.
But maybe relatively, we need to appreciate what we have. So relatively speaking.
Drive.
Yeah. So our kind of goal has been to look to create like a core team that we can really kind of launch out a church plant with, and we've had a lot of kind of difficulty with that. We've had times when a team has been forming, and then for a variety of reasons that team is kind of dispersed. But we really do feel. We feel like our role in Zim is to galvanize the African church to start playing its part in the Great Commission.
What a great mission. What a great way to articulate that.
Yeah, because I think for a long time the African church has kind of perceived itself as being the ends of the earth. We receive the missionaries, the mission trips, and praise God for the people who have been faithful in going to Africa. But if you're a believer, it doesn't matter what country you come from. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
How many obstacles there are stacked against you, how limited the finances are, and how constricted you are by your passport and stuff. You got to go, and you got to play some role in reaching the nations.
Yes.
And so we see our role in Zim as really galvanizing the African church, and we feel like church planting is the best way of doing it. And so with all these setbacks, there have been times where we felt like is this, what we should be doing? And I think whenever we've really kind of gone to the Lord with that and prayed about it, it's just been this affirmation that yes, it is.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of pushing ahead. We're shooting to plant a church early next year. We've been running a Bible study on Wednesday nights at the coffee shop.
Yeah, wonderful.
And there's kind of this group that's kind of gathering around them, and with the group we do evangelism and stuff. We're excited about that. I'm teaching myself the guitar. I'm not
because
musical.
there's no team.
Right. And it's hard to get musicians there. And so if I can, strum along badly until the Lord sends a musician along, then that's what
I
we
love
need
it.
to
I
do.
love the heart behind that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, church planting by its very nature is challenging. But man, I remember when we started our first campus, at Station Hill, and I remember that first Sunday thinking, man, this is really special. Like, Lord willing, there will be a body of believers that are worshiping, discipling, right, sending until Jesus returns.
Yeah.
And there's not very many opportunities in your life you have the chance to be a part of something like that.
Right.
And so how encouraging, and I love your vision, to raise up indigenous leaders, for the church. And so, man, what a great picture of gospel partnership, because it really is a two-way street. I tell our folks all the time, now we're learning so much from our missionaries, who come back, and that's part of why we're so excited that you guys are here. Well, as we continue to lean into some of those challenges, I was sharing with you guys, I used an illustration a few years ago in a sermon about inflation, and so a church member gifted me this. It's actually the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. It is a $100 trillion bill, and so you talk about runaway inflation, and so you guys have experienced it all in Zimbabwe. So talk to us about some more of the challenges, in addition just to the roads and this overall kind of mood, as you were mentioning, in the country, but also talk to us about some of the joys, because I think that's part of being honest to the missionary endeavor really in life is to recognize the challenges, but also to give gratitude to God for the opportunities or the good things that are there. So kind of give us both sides of that coin.
Yeah, so daily life is quite a challenge in Zim. You're constantly feeling like you're being hounded by the police. You're being hounded by the tax authority, the equivalent of the IRS.
Well, currently we use 3 currencies.
So even just that.
At a store, like you can pay with 3 different currencies at one time.
Yeah, that's
And
so
sometimes
confusing.
all 3 don't work for some reason. Like if a bill has a little tear on it, they won't take it. That kind of thing.
Interesting. Even running a coffee shop, that has to be a challenge.
Balancing is really tough.
Yeah. Can you imagine counting in 3 different currencies?
Ooh, it's rough.
You're not gifted at math. So that's a challenge. Just getting stuff there. You have to go to quite a lot of lengths and
Grocery shopping takes a day or 2.
So the Amazon truck doesn't just drive up to your coffee shop every...
It never makes sense.
Yeah, we always
Get lost
place
in the
the order,
pothole.
but it never seems to arrive. And then I think, spiritually, there is a hunger for God. I think in your average Zimbabwean, but given the kind of dire economic situation, it's a very kind of, it often tends to be a very materially oriented hunger. It's like, I need God because I need a job. And like, I'm gonna pray and I'm gonna fast. I'm gonna climb this mountain. But there's kind of not an idea of really the heart of God, and so it's like it's a very utilitarian approach. Like whoever will give me what I'm needing, I'll go to. And so
almost prosperity gospel.
Very much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
almost,
Zimbabwe is now kind of the center of the prosperity gospel. I think it's just pipped Nigeria to the post. But even so there's explicit prosperity gospel, but there's also it's also just embedded in the culture, and so I might give the witch doctor a try, and I might give this kind of prophet a try, because I'm just
trying to find what
so
works.
desperate.
Yeah.
But I think for us, what really excites us is when you just walk aside someone, and you just really kind kind of feed them or enable them to feed, I guess is probably more the activity, with the true gospel, with the word of God. And you just see how that transforms a person. It transforms kind of their motivations. It's no longer, just about, how much money you can make and how you can leave the country. That's kind of the highest goal of every Zimbabwean. Find some way of leaving the country. Find some way to the West. And when you really see that kind of taking root in a person's heart, just a real love for God, and a real burden to make their lives count for Him. That just gets us.
Well, and it even has to provide some interesting gospel conversation opportunities for you guys, because obviously, you guys could be here instead of there.
Oh, yeah.
So if people say, "Well, why would you choose to live here when you could live in the United States?" If everybody's goal is to get out,
right?
That in and of itself is a testimony.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, and we have to ask ourselves that question a lot. Why are we here? And I think every few months, we choose to carry on there because we feel like that is where we are going to be best used by God in the mission. And being able to share that with people, I think it's different because every voice that you hear, all the conventional wisdom from the elders in Zimbabwe is go and find yourself a job overseas.
Amazing. So Emmy, being an outsider, so coming to that culture, talk to us about some of the beautiful things. What are some of the things that you've enjoyed? What are some of the joys you've experienced? Give us that perspective as well.
I mean, I'm sure you've heard other people when they talk about Africa. There's a slower pace of life that I really enjoy, and I think America, you kind of lose that because there's such a pace you have to keep here. But people, partly because of the economy and just the desperate situation, they have more time to sit and talk and get to know you, and they're willing to go deep in conversation. So that's probably one of my favorite things, and just there is a lot of just beauty in the country as well. Like the people are both beautiful, the landscape is beautiful. I was thinking actually driving here, like everything's so green and beautiful here in its own way. And part of me is like, you can just see God's blessing in that in a sense. And then like you see Zimbabwe, and it's so dry, but there is still so much beauty there. There's so much there. I get so much joy like flying over and seeing the green here, but then also going back home and flying and seeing the brown that we're landing in. And just knowing that there's such beauty and sweetness there.
So good. Well, it's such a privilege to walk with you guys, and just to, I got to be with you at the missionary gathering in London and hear some of the stories of how God was at work, and so we're so excited to welcome you guys back. As you're here this month, specifically, how can we be praying for you, the ministry? We've obviously hit on some trailheads with the coffee shop, the church plant, some of the challenges, but what are some of the other specifics that we can be praying with and for you guys about?
One big one is we're soon to adopt. Hopefully, we've just finished up kind of all the paperwork this side because they had to kind of clear me here, and then hopefully when we go back, things will be cleared there as well, and they can combine the paperwork, and we'll get it matched with a child.
That's exciting.
So we've been praying for that for quite a while now.
It's
one thing we've always had a heart for and known we want to do.
Amazing.
So our kids are pretty excited about it.
Amazing. From Zimbabwe? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, as an adoptive parent myself, I remember the countless hours of paperwork, the numerous documents, and I can only imagine, right, kind of being from
it's
two
like
cultures.
Hardly any papers in Zimbabwe, and like tons here for just a home study here.
Oh yeah,
so much. But there it's like this many.
Fascinating. Well, thank you guys for answering that call and all that goes with it, because it will change the dynamic of your home, all of those things. Sure. But as we talk about around here often, adoption is a visible picture of the gospel.
Yeah,
it is.
Because God, not only saved us, justified us, took away the penalty of sin, but He invited us to be His sons and daughters, brought us into the family. And so, I found, it's just such a great way to share the gospel and live the gospel. And it's challenging, just like raising, your biological kids are as well. But, again, with those challenges comes some of God's greatest blessings. So we'll be
Yeah.
praying for you in that journey. So anything else we can pray for?
I mean, you mentioned the trailheads, and those
Yeah.
really are kind of some of the prayer requests that are closest to our hearts. And so, in our church planting endeavors for persistence and faithfulness on our part. That's really our job. Just be faithful and pour into people and preach the gospel, but then the Lord would also use those labors and draw people to Himself and into His kingdom and grow them, in their walk with Him into greater obedience, greater joy, greater missional mindedness. And then, as you mentioned the coffee shop, and I think the coffee shop also has been through some pretty stormy weather, and it's looking like we might be kind of coming out of that, which would be really, really cool. But in Zim, you're just never sure what's around the corner.
Yeah, when the economic situation is so unstable,
Yeah.
you have to really, really rely on the Lord who is,
Yeah.
and all of those things. So we'll certainly pray for that, for favor in all of those ways, for continued mission.
Right.
that God will do the things only God can do. So again, so He gets the glory for all of that. Final thing before we go, we're calling this month The Call.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we've talked about is we all have a call to share the gospel, to disciple others. What would you say to those folks out there, again, who look at you guys and say, well, wow, missionaries, I don't think I could ever be like them. What would be your word of encouragement to them today?
I think I was them. Like, I definitely was. I never wanted to leave Tennessee. I never wanted to leave my little small town. Until the Lord just really started convicting me, you've got to start praying about people to disciple and where I'm sending you. And I didn't know if that was locally, globally, but the people that talked about Africa, I thought they were the crazy people. 'Cause they, when they get on a roll, they just go about it. They never get it off their heart.
Missionary.
And then I became that person as God started laying it on my heart, and I was like, really? Like, we have to go this route? But then I became that person that doesn't stop talking about it. And it's been so worth it. I'm so glad God didn't give me my plan.
That's
I've
profound.
been abundantly blessed by jumping off a cliff with him.
So living by faith, and trusting the Lord with the results. And for you, Winston, the journey of Zimbabwe here back to Zimbabwe.
I think my experience has just been when I am living in obedience, I have the greatest joy. Like when I'm going through
good.
seasons of not being good with my spiritual disciplines, not spending time in the Word, not spending good time in kind of good, deep relationships, not sharing the gospel. I'm not doing well. I'm not flourishing. Everything seems like just a bit ajar. But when I'm living sacrificially and I'm engaging in hard conversations with brothers who I love and with outsiders, that's just when it just feels like life flows and I understand why I'm here and why God made me and what He wants me to do. And so I'd say if someone's struggling to kind of live like that, to just try, just take the plunge. And see what the experience is like, because for me it's been one of just abundant joy.
Yeah, that's so good. Obedience leads to joy, and again, joy independent in Scripture from circumstances, right? More than just temporary happiness, right? So lasting joy comes out of obedience. Man, that's so good. So fun to catch up with you guys. I wish we had more time, but I love that we're going to get to see each other more this month, and you're going to get to be with many of our campuses. So we're going to wrap up today. Thanks for joining us for this first episode in our mission series. It's been a lot of fun. And if you were encouraged by Winston and Emmy's story, we hope you'll take time to pray for them and for the people across Zimbabwe to encounter Christ. So as we continue through August, we'll keep bringing more stories of how the gospel is going to the ends of the earth. And don't forget, Sunday, August 17th, the Global Worker will be preaching at every one of our campuses. And that's a Sunday that you don't want to miss as we celebrate what God is doing around the world through our church family. So be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss what's ahead. And we'll see you next time on the Sermon Notes Podcast.